Hello and welcome back to video 6. This is going to be an introduction to mathematical expressions. God, that sounds nerdy, doesn't it? Let's go ahead and get started and we'll define what a mathematical expression is. We say that a mathematical expression is a mathematical statement involving mathematical symbols that does not include an equal sign. So just think there's a bunch of math stuff written on the page. When we look at all the symbols on the page, there's no equal sign. A really quick check to see if something's an expression. Look at a bunch of math stuff, feel like you've been punched in the face, and then just ask yourself a really simple question. Is there an equal sign? If there's no equal sign, what do we call it? You got it. It's called an expression. In this class, we're going to focus on 6 types of expressions. The entire class is just focused on 6 types of expressions. Let's go ahead and take a look at what those are going to be. The first and most beautiful, in other words, the least painful expression is going to be something called a linear expression. And I want to make a call out so that we can start to develop intuition. The first 4 letters of the word linear are line. So literally think line when you're thinking about linear expressions. And some of you might remember that a line takes the form mx plus b. So if we can get it into this form, where we have a constant b, we have this thing called the slope, we have just an x, we're going to think linear expression. So we'll come back to that later. Next type of expression that we're going to focus on is called a quadratic expression. And let's think cuadro. So those of you that speak Spanish, or those of us that speak Spanish, we're going to think cuadro. And another way to say cuadro is square. So again, x squared are going to show up in quadratic expressions. Next one we're going to talk about is, again, that beautiful absolute value expressions. And in this case, we want to think about going to the bar. The absolute value bars. When absolute values show up, we're going to call that an absolute value expression. Next, we're going to talk about rational expressions. And I want to, again, read the first few letters of that word, ratio. So when we think about rational expressions, we can think about ratios, which is division. Next type of expression we're going to talk about is power expressions. Again, remember that we're going to use power operations, which we said was like x to the n. So power expressions involve power operations. And finally, we're going to talk about radical expressions, dude. And in this case, we're going to think about the radical sign. So expressions that involve radicals, we're going to call them radical expressions. Let's go ahead and define each of these separately, but these are the entire focus of the class. We've got 6 types of expressions, and we're going to be working with those throughout the quarter. Linear, quadratic, absolute values, ratio, now, rational, power, and radical. Let's go ahead and look at each of these separately and take a look at some examples on how to classify.